What's up YouTube? Hope you're having a fantastic day. In this video we're going to be demoing the Transition Smuggler. I'm super excited to try out this bike. It's a very highly rated trail bike. I've heard a lot of good things. We're out here in beautiful Leavenworth, Washington, and while Leavenworth is known for its Bavarian architecture, its German inspired food, and its incredible mountains, it's also a fantastic place to ride mountain bikes. So next time you're in Leavenworth, bring your bike, or better yet, don't bring your bike and rent a sick bike from Eastside Cycle Works. They've got high-end rentals from Transition, Santa Cruz, Rocky Mountain, Cannondale, and more. So huge shout out to Eastside Cycle Works for letting me demo this bike. In this video we're going to talk about how this bike climbs, how it descends, different pricing options. We'll talk a little bit about the geometry and who I think this bike is for. Thanks for watching, and here we go.
All right, so this first trail we're descending is called Ribbed. This is a black diamond trail, and it's not super technical with, you know, rocks or roots or anything, but it is a black diamond. It does have some exposure and some pretty good sized jumps. So this is a trail that I usually ride on my Enduro bike, so I'm curious to see, you know, time-wise how fast this thing is. I think the bike's going to be quicker, you know, a little more responsive. It's 4 or 5 pounds lighter, so I'm curious to see how that will translate on a long descent like this. So the Smuggler is Transition's do-it-all trail bike. They call it the trusty tool for any trail. The bike has 29-inch wheels front and rear. It has 130 millimeters of rear travel and 140 millimeters of front travel. Ooh, one thing I noticed immediately is how quiet this bike is. Holy cow.
Okay, so the Smuggler that I'm riding today is the Carbon GX build. This is going for $5,299 US at the moment. They've got several different build options to fit your budget, starting with the alloy build at $2,999, all the way up to the Carbon Exo Transmission Axis build, which is $6,999. You can also get the Carbon frame set alone for $32.99. I think this Carbon GX build that I'm riding is probably the best bang for your buck. You get a very solid build spec at a decent price from a company that offers a lifetime warranty on their bikes. And while you could update a couple little things here and there to save on some weight, I think this GX build is a very sensible option with good reliable components.
Some big jumps coming up here in a sec.
Alright, so as I'm cruising along here, let's talk about a few of the key geometry numbers for this size large Carbon Smuggler. This has a 485 millimeter reach, a 78.1 effective seat tube angle, a 65-degree head tube angle, a 440 chainstay length, a 1247 wheelbase, and a 625 millimeter stack. Transition in general makes their bikes a little bit longer, a little longer reach, a little longer wheelbase, but I feel like that's balanced out nicely with the chainstay length, and to me the bike felt very, very balanced. This was my first ride on this bike, and I really didn't have any hesitation at all, just throwing it into turns, hitting the jumps. I immediately felt pretty dang comfortable. While this bike from Transition might not be super downhill oriented, it does pretty well. You know, it's got moderate geometry that handles like a trail bike should. It corners well, it jumps really good. It's really easy to carry speed and maintain speed on smoother, more mellow trails. And honestly, it brings like green and blue trails to life. It makes them so much more fun. And it can handle tough terrain when you want it to. It just might be a little slower on that steep, rough terrain than an enduro bike with slacker geometry and suspension that's designed for those types of trails.
Man, one thing I'll say is that the bike just pumps and generates speed really well. I do feel the chatter of the trail a little more in my hands. I think just a little less travel. Bike's a little more responsive and you kind of feel the earth underneath you. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but I do think if you're doing super long technical descents, it might get tiring after a while. But for a trail like this where it's pretty dang fast and smooth, it's not a big deal.
Honestly, I really like that they don't try to make this bike something that it's not. You know, they don't put a super slack 63 or 64 degree head tube angle on a 130 millimeter travel bike. That just doesn't really make sense in my opinion.
Wow, it just feels effortless to like carve into those turns, push and pump. I got some sun in my eyes. Missed the turn.
One of my favorite things about this bike was the suspension. Despite only having 130 millimeters of travel, it felt soft enough off the top, but still was very supportive in that mid-stroke and had good end support, so you really felt like you could pump and corner and generate speed. On those like smoother trails, the bike really comes alive and just propels you and generates speed so well and corners so well. So if that's the type of riding that you enjoy, I think this is an excellent choice.
Oh yeah. Woo! Nice. Well, okay. The bike handled that descent just fine. I still hit all the jumps. The impacts are maybe a touch rougher than usual, and my legs and hands do feel a bit more fatigued just from less travel on the bike. But man, this bike is capable. Oh yeah, transition Smuggler, jumps nicely. All right, so let's talk about how this bike climbs. Short answer is it climbs fantastically. I don't know what else you could ask for in a trail bike. It's got great geometry, very comfortable climbing position. I think this bike weighs around 30 pounds, 31 pounds. So it's a good 4 or 5 pounds lighter than my Enduro bike, which definitely makes a difference. But, you know, I think the way they've designed this bike feels very comfortable to climb and descend. I feel like I'm fanboying a little bit here, but dude, I just am really impressed by this Smuggler today. The bike also looks incredible. I mean, check out this color, this pinkish purple, and it looks great online. But dang, these bikes look so good in person. Just the sharp angles and like the shape of the tubing, it all just looks so good. Makes for a very aesthetically pleasing bike. That obviously comes second to performance, but it doesn't hurt when your bike rides good and also looks good. All right, so this thing obviously climbs good, but I want to see how it climbs on this super steep spot. We're gonna winch up this thing, maybe get out of the saddle and pedal standing up. See how much pedal bob there is. This is a section that honestly kind of sucks to climb on my big Enduro bike. Oh my gosh. It's almost like it propels you forward as you're pedaling. Here we go, let's stand up a little. That does great. That does great. Yeah. Well, I'm not the best climber, but man, it climbed that much more efficiently than my Enduro bike does. And standing up, pushing hard out of the saddle, it didn't bob too much. I had good traction, but it also felt supportive. Okay, time for a little more descending. This one's called Lower Rosy Boa. Here we go. Okay, so to wrap up this video, let's talk about who I think this bike is for. I think this bike is perfect for a trail rider who not only needs to climb, but also enjoys climbing and maybe wants to push their speeds on the climbs, shoot for those king of the mountains climbing. In my experience, this was a very quick climber, super comfortable, and I felt like the bike was literally propelling me forward because it was just so balanced, and the suspension platform works really well for climbing. When it comes to descending, this bike excels on flow trails, you know, smoother trails where you're just pumping and flowing, cornering, jumping, generating a lot of speed. I think this bike is perfect for the riders who
love that type of trail. If you're somebody who prioritizes steep and gnarly technical descents, this probably isn't the best bike for you, but I think that it's still capable and can still do those things because it's so balanced and has good geometry. But overall, it's just a very well-mannered trail bike that can do it all really well. This is obviously subjective, but the bike also looks super sick. So that about wraps it up for my first ride impressions of the Transition Smuggler. Again, huge shout out to Eastside Cycle Works in Leavenworth, Washington for renting me demo this thing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Oh, what's this little fun thing? Oh yeah, oh yeah.